And here's a short video explaining significant figures. In order to understand this video, you need to understand how to round off to 1 or 2 or 3 decimal places, or how to round numbers off to the nearest whole number, to the nearest 10, to the nearest 100, the nearest 1000, etc. So, first of all, the first significant figure is the first non-zero digit, i.e. the first figure that isn't a zero. So here are 4 numbers, and in each case I'm going to highlight the first significant figure, the first figure that isn't a zero. So that's the 8 in the first number, it's the 6 in the second number. You ignore the zero, you ignore that zero, it's the first figure that isn't a zero. In the third figure, you ignore those zeros at the front, it's the first figure that isn't a zero, so that's a 2. And in the last number, it's the 4. Now, we ask ourselves, when rounding to one significant figure, what is the place value of that first significant figure? So what's the place value of the number I've highlighted? So in the first number, that number 8 is in the thousands column. In the second number, the 6, that's the first decimal place. In the third number, the 2, that's the third decimal place. And finally, the 4 in the last number is in the 10,000s column. So, for each number, when we round off to one significant figure, we round off to that place value. So in the first number, we're rounding 8,076 to the nearest 1,000, which will be 8,000. 0.63, we're rounding to one decimal place. That's 0.6. In the third number, we'll be rounding off to the third decimal place, or 3 decimal places. That'll be 0.003. And finally, we'll be rounding that number off to the nearest 10,000, that's 41,000. So to the nearest 10,000, that'll be 40,000. And that's how you round off to one significant figure. To round off to 2 significant figures, we go through the same process. The second significant figure is the very next digit after the first significant figure, even if that digit is a 0. So, in our numbers here, 8 is the first significant figure, so the second significant figure will be a 0. There it is. In the second number, the 6 is the first significant figure, so 3 is the second. In the third number, the 2 is the first significant figure, so the second one is the 9. And finally, the 4 is the first significant figure, so 1 will be the second. Excuse me. So when rounding to 2 significant figures, we simply ask ourselves, what is the place value of the second significant figure? In the first number, that's to the nearest 100. In the second, it's to 2 decimal places, or the second decimal place. In the third number, it's the 4th decimal place. And in the last number, that 1 there is in the thousands column. So, when rounding off that first number to the nearest 100, that number's between 8,000 and 8,100, and it's nearer to 8,100. In the second number to 2 decimal places, well, that's just 0.63. To round off to 4 decimal places in the third number, that would just be 0.0029. And finally, to round the 4th number off to the nearest 1,000, that's between 41,000 and 42,000, but it's actually nearer to 41,000. And in our final example, 3 significant figures. The third significant figure is the next digit after the second significant figure. So, in this case, it would be the 7. In the second number, it would be the 4. In the third number, it would be the 7, because we would ignore these 2 zeros. So that's the first number. The 4 is the first, that's the second, that's the third significant figure. and in the final number it would be that second 4. So that's our place value highlighted for us. In the first number, that's to the nearest 10. In the second number, that would be to 2 decimal places. In the third number, that would be the 4th decimal place. And lastly, the highlighted 4 is in the hundreds column. So back to the first number, we're rounding that number off to the nearest 10. So that's either 8,070 or 8,080, but it's nearer to 8,080, so that's our answer. In the second number, to 2 decimal places, that would just be 3.14. In the third number, the 4th decimal place would be, well, because we look after the 7, we've got a 5, so we would actually round that up to an 8, so it's 0.0488. And finally, 41,456 is between 41,400 and 41,500, but it's nearer to 41,500. And that's how to round off using significant figures.